we're in the chat. They're saying they're getting feedback from your mic. Could you check it a second?
It's this one, I think. Is this it?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
so for those of you who are listening on the other link, we just remedied that problem. Okay. Um. So so again now let's transition to something with all of the because the police are being armed like they're military, um, a domestic military force, and with America spending billions upon billions and even trillions of dollars on her bases and her wars abroad, and to induct new weapons, some which are not worth the money. But how can she stay afloat, especially in an economic meltdown like now? How can the empire remain the dominant power? And before you answer that, I just want to add that I did a video a few days ago, maybe a week ago, and where I brought in all of the information that says China is now actually the number one
Yeah.
economy in the world. So not only does she have the top four banks in the world, and her four banks have more than the next 20 banks. And not only is she the world's lender, she's America's lender. She is the number one manufacturer, the number one importer, the number one exporter. She's the number one trade partner to almost every nation around the world. And
Mhm.
now her economy passes the purchasing power parity line and becomes a reality, and becomes a $24.2 trillion economy compared to America's
Right.
$20.8 trillion economy.
Mhm.
And with that said, there was a report saying that America will lose at least $16 trillion of her economy this year alone. How can America continue to fund these wars abroad and fund her domestic military force here?
Well, I don't think they can. Yeah, I think that we are in the last days of the empire, and we don't have too many choices here. But to get back to your first part, I mean, you're absolutely right here. That one of the things is we're spending so much money on the military, and what we're doing, we're training all these young men and women on how to kill and how to use all these weapons. And what they go into a theater of combat like Iraq or Afghanistan. And yes, okay, they can say everybody else is the enemy, even if it's not true. But you can't go into a neighborhood, in Cleveland and think that the people around you are the enemy.
Mhm.
They're the ones you're supposed to serve. But here's where they got this training. They're getting these outlandish weapons from the military, uh, you know, cast offs, from the military. And they're pushing that on the police forces. And everything is going to, everything is there to basically escalate violence. And, they don't train them properly. But, when you talk about the bigger issue with the empire, I mean, I come down to this point that you have with the military things going around, what they call a self-licking ice cream cone. You've got this situation where you know we're we're selling all these weapons to these countries overseas. We're shipping our people over there with all these weapon systems, and we've got to have a new bomber that goes faster than the Russians can get 'em, and we got to have all these aircraft carriers, destroyers, and all this kind of stuff. And you think about, well, what are we defending? You know, and and we've got to the point, as you say, where we have $1 trillion a year at least going into the military that comes right out of income tax, right out of people's wallets. But then we can't feed children in the country. We can't house. I go out. If I go down the street from my house into the park down here, there's people camping. Off the side of the path in
Hmm.
the woods.
Hmm.
Not one or two. I mean, dozens of people out there who live out there.
Hmm.
you know and why is that? Why should we be doing that? And really, somehow the answer has to go with these two corrupt political parties. And uh you've had, they are basically serving the corporations. They're serving, and the corporations are making money off all this stuff. The banks are making money off all this stuff. So yeah, we sell more F-35s to The United Arab Emirates, well, great, somebody's got a lot of money now. They're making more money. We don't think about the consequences ever. It's we just keep this thing going becomes its own. It becomes like perpetual motion. And it's hard to imagine being able to stop it. I mean, if you want to think about, like we started off with, why is Trump now putting people in the Pentagon who want to get out of Afghanistan, for example? Why didn't he put them in, 4 years ago and actually get us the hell out of Afghanistan?
Mhm.
Well, you know, he they don't want that. I mean, the people that's in his own party don't want that, and nobody in the Washington bureaucracy wants that because they're all making money off of it. And the reason to get involved in these other countries militarily is to make money. I mean, I don't see any reason for us to be in Syria, for us to be in Iraq, for us to be in Afghanistan, or any of these other countries. I mean, and we got what, 800 bases around the world, pretty much.
Actually, that's a mistake.
Yeah.
That's what is reported a lot on. But a few years ago, I was watching the Pentagon briefers in a meeting with Congress, and
Mhm.
one of the top generals said that America, when you include her like training centers and stuff, America has roughly over 5,000, and it blew my mind. I was like, what? Over
Yeah.
5,000
Right.
bases around
Yeah.
the world.
For what? Well, yeah.
Mm,
I mean, people making money at every one of those bases. You've got your civilian contractors, you've got all the, Halliburtons and all the people that have to supply all the stuff that's there and all the food for the troops and everything else. I mean, it's making a lot of money, and we don't have anything else making money in this country right now. We've lost our manufacturing, intentionally. We drove manufacturing out, um, and mostly the Democrats had that pleasure. And now this is the only industry we've got is building these weapons and weapon systems and selling them overseas. And it's not it. It's hard for me to imagine that somebody go in as president and stop it because they would be under so much pressure from every quarter, and you'd have to have loyal people who agreed with your policy in all the key positions, in the intelligence and defense and state. And even then, you would have a hard time keeping the blob or the deep state or whatever you want to call it from just basically screwing with everything you were trying to do. It's frustrating your efforts. Um, there are people that say, well, if somebody really tried to do that, they get themselves killed. I mean, some president trying to do that. Yeah, maybe so.